Here we go. Pierre Poilievre. Why you can't afford a fourth liberal term.
So 10 years ago, Liberals said they'd bring affordable housing. Since then, they've doubled the rent, doubled mortgage costs, doubled the needed down payment, double housing trouble. And today, Mark Carney doubled down on exactly the same Liberal policies that gave us the...
Okay, let's just talk about the housing cost and the down payment, right? Obviously, if the house costs more than 500,000, which nowadays is pretty much the minimal price or minimum, once it's over 500,000, you actually need 20% for the down payment. Even if you're a first-time home buyer, you're still gonna need at least 20% for the down payment, which is crazy. For the house that costs 500,000, 20%, that's 100,000. You need to have down payment 100,000. That's crazy, especially with nowadays prices, which is all caused because of the Liberals, right? Well, you can argue that it's not just them, but no, they were in power for 10 years and they didn't do anything to make it easier for us. So whatever the situation in the world is, we're still our own country. We have natural heritage, but the Liberals just blocked the pipelines and pretty much took the strong economy from Canada. Like, Canada has such a huge potential to be one of the economical best countries ever, like economic leaders, right? But somehow 10 years under the Liberals and we're kind of on the opposite side of that. I mean, okay, economically Canada's probably not doing bad, but again, the same thing, if you look at the average salary, it's probably not going to be bad either. But if you look into it, how it really is, that there's no middle class nowadays. There's pretty much really no middle class. So anyway, how do you think you're going to be able to save 100K for the down payment of the house, then pay crazy high mortgage and afford to live and pay off your bills? And this is all thanks to the Liberals. Like, of course, you can start blaming war in Ukraine and stuff like this. But again, you wouldn't feel it as much if we had a good government, which we didn't. Anyway, let's continue.
Worst housing inflation in all of the G7. Quick recap. When Justin Trudeau took office, it took $450,000 to buy the average home. Now that amount has gone up by well over 70%. And with higher interest rates brought on by overspending by the government, it's about double the mortgage payment that you have.
Ontario, you buy a townhouse for $1 million. How crazy is that for a townhouse? I know of people who bought a house in GTA, I think it was in 2003, 2010, something around that, before 2010 probably. They bought a house for $300,000, which for that time probably wasn't the cheapest either. But now they sold it over $1 million. And it's not in Toronto, it's not in Mississauga, it's GTA. It's about an hour away from Toronto. So in those, 15, 20 years, they made $1 million extra. That's crazy. And that just shows you how liberals screwed all of us over. And I kind of don't understand how housing can be so expensive when we have so much land. Like, there's so much land you can use to build affordable housing. And I'm not talking specifically about Ontario, but let's say Alberta. You have so many prairies and not all of it is farms. So why aren't we building affordable housing over there? Like, why are we in this housing crisis? You know why? Because someone's making money of it. And it's not normal people. It's not normal Canadians. It's someone higher there. Someone who has a good ties with liberals. What can I say?
Have to make. Toronto and Vancouver are now the most expensive housing markets in all of North America
There we
and
go.
among the worst in the entire world. We have the fewest homes per capita of any country in the G7, even though we have by far the most land to build on. When I was housing minister, you could pay off a mortgage in less than 25 years. Now, in our biggest cities, it takes longer than that just to save up for a down payment. So today, Mark Carney announced new plans to spend tens of billions of dollars of your tax money. And of course, it won't build houses, it will build bureaucracy. He even brought back the failed housing minister, Sean Fraser, who gave us the worst housing costs in the history of the country, and who was also the immigration minister that overpopulated our country, leading to the housing shortage. Their record is to inflate demand for housing with out-of-control immigration and money printing, and to block supply by building up the local bureaucracies with federal tax dollars that prevent builders from building. Now, what's the solution? Well, first of all, after the lost Liberal decade of rising housing costs, it sure isn't to put the same Liberal ministers, Liberal MPs, Liberal strategists, and Liberal promises in power to do it all over again. We need a new Conservative government that will change things and a real plan to build the homes, not the bureaucracy. And so here's our plan. First, I'll axe the federal sales tax on new homes to save you up to 65 grand on a purchase price and up to $3 grand on annualized mortgage payments. Second, we're going to sell off 6,000 federal buildings, thousands of acres of federal land to build new homes. Third, we're going to incentivize municipalities to speed up permits, free up land, and cut development charges so that builders can build faster and you can
lower the property taxes, please.
Fourth, we need boots, not suits. We're putting all of our educational resources into white-collar office job education when in fact we need the people who swing the hammers, that lay the foundations, that frame the sticks that make up homes. And so we're going to back 350,000 positions in trade schools and union halls to get Red Seal apprentice positions building homes. We'll bring back the $4,000 apprenticeship grant to build. And finally, we're going to unlock billions of dollars in new home building investment in the private sector by allowing anyone who reinvests their capital gains in Canada to pay zero tax. That's right, you'll pay zero tax on capital gains if you reinvest the money in building in Canada, including building homes here in Canada. Look, we don't need more government bureaucracy. Government is not the solution. Government is the problem. We have the builders, we have the land, we have the lumber, we have the incredible workers to do the job. The problem is that we have the second slowest permits in all of the OECD, and most of the cost of a new home today is government delays, taxes, fees, charges, and other bureaucratic burdens.
Yeah, how crazy is that, right? We have everything. We have land, lumber, exactly what Pierre said. Like, we have everything. And people need housing. People need to buy houses. They want to buy houses. So what's the issue? Why is there such a crisis? It's unbelievable what happened under the Liberals. And there's one thing I want to talk about. Immigration and the Liberals, obviously, right? It's going to sound funny because I am immigrant. But the immigration in Canada is crazy. And you can see it in Ontario. You can see it now even in Alberta. Like, don't get me wrong. Canada was built on immigrants. It's not bad. It's not bad to have immigration. But you need to have some requirements for the immigration. Like, you should know the language, at least the basics of the language. Like, I can't even tell you how many times I have to deal with someone who doesn't understand a word in English. And they are PR. They might even be Canadians, which is, Canadian citizens, right? Which is kind of crazy. And I saw quite a lot of comments on my video, and people agreed with me. People said that it's gonna sound bad, and I don't know if I would use that word. I don't know if I agree with that word, but it's about the quality of the immigrants, which I wouldn't judge anyone about the quality, right? But definitely there should be some requirements. Like I said, at least know the language. Because, yeah, like, I know back in the day we had a lot of immigrants moving to Canada, US. They didn't know language, they learned the language. But what happened nowadays, especially in Canada, some of the immigrants are not willing to adjust to Canada. Like, they're not willing to learn the language. They're not willing to follow the Canadian laws. They're not willing to assimilate with Canadian culture. And that all happened during the Liberals' terms. And it's crazy, because if you compare it with US, somehow the immigration over there works much better. And I'm talking about legal immigration. I'm not talking about illegal, obviously, right? But like, I visited US multiple times. I dealt with multiple immigrants. And all of them were just assimilate to the culture. Like, they were respectful to the culture. You couldn't say anything. And we can compare it to, let's say, immigrants in Canada, like the prior Liberals and whatever. If we talk about, let's say, Polish immigrants, they assimilate to Canada, they respect Canada, they follow the laws, they learn the language. They still keep their own culture, but they're not trying to enforce the culture onto Canadians. Like, they have small communities where they celebrate their own Polish culture, Polish habits and everything. But at the same time, they're following the Canadian laws, are respectful to Canadian culture, and just assimilate. And that's how it's supposed to be. Like, no one wants you to forget your own culture, but obviously you moved from your home country to Canada. So don't try to change Canada into your home country. There's a reason why you moved, right? It's like me, I'm from Czech Republic. I'm not trying to change Canada into Czech Republic. Why would I move to Canada if I wanted to change it to Czech Republic, right? If it makes sense. It's just ridiculous. Like, there needs to be more requirements, I guess a little bit better enforcement of the Canadian law. And like, the people who are trying to keep the Canadian culture should not be punished because they don't want to assimilate to the culture of immigrants, which is ridiculous. Like, Canadians are respectful. They're respectful towards immigrants. But you live in Canada. You shouldn't try to assimilate to the culture of some other country that you don't live in, right? Maybe I got a little bit tangled up, but I bet you kind of understand what I mean. Yeah. So, like, anyway, let's continue. I believe Pierre Poilievre, oh my God, I paused it at the worst time again, right? I believe that Pierre Poilievre would deal with this issue. Like, I don't think the immigration itself is the big issue. I think it's how the immigration is handled. You know, like, so many times we had immigrants who broke the law, just like speeding on the highway, not stopping on the stop sign. And what they told to the police officer, if they were even able to speak English, is that they didn't pass the exam in English. So they don't know. They don't know what the sign says, which is ridiculous. How is it even possible? You're in Canada. Like, it should be a requirement, but somehow it's not.
By removing those burdens, we can reverse the disastrous decade that the Liberals gave us. Let's not go back. Let's not make the same mistakes all over again just because there's a leader who now has a different blue pair of socks rather than Justin Trudeau. They stand for exactly the same things. They'll get exactly the same results. You deserve a home. That's the Canadian promise. You work hard, you get a beautiful house on a safe street, protected by brave troops under a proud flag. That's why I'm in politics. Let's bring it home.
Canada first. See, that's how it's supposed to be. Canada first. The politicians in Canada, the politicians in general, they're servants of people. Like, we choose the politicians, we give them the job. They're supposed to represent us, represent our best interest. So tell me, how is it possible that liberals are not representing the people of Canada? How is it possible that it was more important for liberals to help countries outside of the Canada by your taxpayers' money, rather than make sure that Canada and Canadians are actually in good position to help these other countries? Like, they literally decide, let's take money from Canadians and send them somewhere else. Screw the Canadians. And there was one more point I wanted to say. I think Mr. Poilievre said it, and like, give me 1 second. I'll just rewind it.
That's the Canadian promise. You work hard, you get a beautiful decade that the Liberals gave us. Let's not go back. Let's not make the same mistakes all over again, just because there's a leader who now has a different...
There we go. That's what I meant. Like, what Liberals did with Trudeau and Carney right now is pretty much just rebranding. It's still the same political party. Mark Carney is still representing Liberals. Do you really think the Liberals would elect someone who's going to go against what happened in last 10 years? Who's not going to follow the Liberals' ideals and agenda? It's not going to happen. And another thing is, how many of you guys work really hard, take overtimes, and for what? I remember 4 years ago, if I worked hard, I had something to show up for. Not only to pay off my bills, but let's say to buy something extra. Something that I needed for my house, but I didn't need it at the time, right? And look at it now. You work overtime just to pay off the bills. That's crazy. Like, that's not how it should be. Like, you shouldn't work this hard to just survive. And like Mr. Poilievre says, we need to restore the Canadian promise. And it's not just Canadian promise. It's the same like American dream, right? You work hard, you're rewarded. We don't have it in Canada right now. You work hard to survive, which is ridiculous. You can go to any other country, and if you work hard just to survive, it's gonna be exactly the same, man. Anyway, that's why we can't afford a fourth Liberal term. And let me finish this video with, everyone knows this saying. Definition of insanity is doing the same thing all over again, expecting different result. And if you vote for Liberals, even though right now the Liberal leader is someone else than Justin Trudeau, the party is still the same, the ideals are the same, the agenda is still the same. If you vote for them, you're insane. I'm sorry. If you vote for them and expect different outcome than last 10 years, or let's not go that far, let's go last 4 years, because it really got much worse in those last 4 years. That's definition of insanity. Don't be insane. Vote with logic. Do your research before you vote. I always say, with Liberals, you can vote according to the actions, according to what they did in those last 10 years. With Conservatives, let's be honest, it's about the hope, it's about the faith. Right now, all we have is this promise. But if you vote for Conservatives, you're voting for the change. If you vote for Liberals, you're voting for next 4 years to be exactly the same like last 10 years. 4 or 3, sorry, my bad.